Thank you so much, sir, for coming out of the class and straight away sitting for a recording of a podcast. I saw you were teaching something related to climatology. Exactly what were you teaching? I was not able to.
Yes, Vaibhav, in climatology, I was teaching the wind system part.
Wind system. Okay, so fortunately, that is also very related to what we are going to discuss right now.
Okay.
And the topic that I have thought of today to discuss with you is there are multiple topics, but they hover around monsoon system and wind patterns in India.
All right. Okay.
And the reason is that because pretty soon the monsoon is going to hit Kerala.
Obviously, the right date to hit the monsoon wind system in Kerala as a state is exact date when you talk about it. It's 1st of June.
Right. So 1st of June, generally it is considered, but not every year.
But this time it is bit early.
It is bit early. Yes. The question is, how do we know it is going to be a bit early?
So Meteorological Department of India, which is Indian Meteorological Department,
correct,
performs the predictions.
The predictions which fail.
No, obviously many a times, but sometimes they are able to predict in the right manner also. But the failure rate is also significant.
So do you think that Indian Meteorological Department's prediction is somewhat similar to the predictions done by astrologers? Like there is a success and a failure rate equal, and so why do they fail? I mean, the something that I have not able to understand is that when IMD says tomorrow it's going to be a rainfall, Indians say tomorrow there is not going to be any rainfall.
Because
what is the reason for such a perception?
Because majority of the times when IMD predicted something, so it did not happen.
What is the reason?
First I will talk about the prediction for this year, what they are making.
Okay.
And then I will get back to this question what you are asking.
Okay.
The basis on which they predict the behavior of monsoon.
Correct.
This year IMD is saying that it's going to be above average monsoonal rainfall.
Right.
So monsoon season as such extends to 4 months of time period in a year.
Okay.
Which is June, July, August and September. But IMD specifically mentioned that in the first 2 months of monsoon season, which is June and July,
right,
it's going to be average rainfall.
Average rainfall.
And in the last 2 months, which is August and September, because of La Nina conditions development, we will witness probably
you say
a very high amount of monsoonal rainfall, above average it will
be. When you're using words like there is going to be an average rainfall, there is going to be high rainfall. So average and high compared to what?
Actually, in climatology, when you talk about any particular parameter, let's say temperature,
correct,
or let's say about the rainfall or precipitation conditions in a given area. So you are supposed to consider the average amount by taking into consideration the data for at least 30 years of time period.
Okay.
So it shall be 30 years or more.
30 years or more.
So let's say we are talking about the average monsoonal rainfall.
Correct.
So we have to consider the monsoonal rainfall amount for at least 30 years.
30 years.
So Indian Meteorological Department has considered the time span of 50 years.
50 years.
To come to this average data of monsoonal rainfall. And this figure is 87 centimeter.
87 centimeter.
That is 50 years average.
So in last 50 years, India has seen around 87 centimeter rainfall in these 4 specific months of monsoon.
And this year it is going to be higher than that.
Let's now come to that. I can bet huge amount of money that it's not going to be more than that in initial 2 months.
Because of the, you can say, past experiences you have with the IMD, you can say predictions.
And why is that? I've never, because you teach geography and you have a good command over it. Maybe you are a person who can explain to me why the predictions made by IMD generally fail.
Whenever we talk about the predictions of any particular, let's say, rainfall amount, that too by either meteorological department in India or by USA, then first thing is that we have to collect some practical data. Okay. The moisture conditions, the wind speed conditions at specific ground level stations, and number of stations from where you collect the data, it also matters a lot.
Correct.
And if number of stations are not significant enough, then your error percentage in the prediction can be very high.
Correct.
Which is one of the issue we are facing in India. By Indian Meteorological Department.
That is correct.
And the second problem arises, which is relating to technicalities, because whatever data they will fetch practically from the stations, they have to feed this particular data into their simulation models, the computer models. The computer systems are running some of the, you can say, simulation models. And these computing systems are the supercomputers.
Right.
So what is the efficacy of that particular simulation model? And on the top of it, what is the computing capability the organization has it also gives an idea about that what shall be the error percentage. Correct. In addition to the practical data collection.
In addition to. And so I somewhere feel that IMD lags far behind in both infrastructure as well as computational capabilities, which is obviously...
You can say, because when you talk about the supercomputers, which meteorological department is having access, is not one of the best in the world. So computing capability is not, you can say, at par. Second issue with meteorological department is that they are still running the very old, you can say, simulation models. And you must have heard about it.
Yes, somewhere I read that the code that they are running right now,
Fortran code.
It is like written on a very antiquated old language.
Yes, definitely.
Which has been discarded by the scientific community.
And also, when the things are changing in the upcoming years of time, so codes also have to be updated.
Correct.
And they have to be written for the region which is being talked about.
Yes. So how far is this true, sir, that the kind of models or the code that we utilize to predict weather systems in India, they were not at all written for Indian circumstances, but rather they were written for UK and USA?
It is true, because the meteorological departments in these countries, the USA and UK, they are far more, you can say, competent. And during those times, they have developed these models for their own, you can say, weather and climate patterns.
So
we just borrowed them, and then we
just borrowed them. And so you're saying that we are using a formula which was written 40 years ago.
Yes.
On a very old language.
And that too for somewhere else in the world.
Probably which does not observe monsoon reversal of winds.
Reversal of winds.
So how do you expect that to fit into Indian weather systems?
Indian weather system, and that's why the error percentage is very high.
And also there are so many variables when it comes to climate and weather predictions. I can think of temperature.
Yes, temperature is there, pressure is there. Then afterwards you will be having the moisture. Then afterward, wind shear, multiple
jet streams, the wind flow direction of jet streams.
Because monsoon in itself is a very complex
phenomena.
And when you take different parameters and fit into the simulation models, then definitely the models have to be very much perfect when it comes to, you can say, the computing.
So India needs huge investment, not just in establishment of a lot of data collection centers, both on land as well as offshore, but at the same time
in the infrastructure also.
In the infrastructure, with deals with the computational facilities.
Computation facilities, let's say supercomputers and the new, you can say, simulation models we are supposed to develop and is specific to our country.
Correct.
And it's a very grave issue, Vaibhav. Yes. Because I still remember that in 2018, IMD failed to give any forewarning to Kerala about the upcoming very high monsoon rainfall, and we have seen that it turned itself into a disaster.
That's right.
So definitely some part is lacking on the Kerala authorities side also, but given a condition, they would have mentioned any forewarning of upcoming high amount of monsoon rainfall. They would have been able to manage it. Disaster would have been averted, and many lives would have been saved.
Correct.
So we lost many human lives, which is the most precious entity.
Correct.
And the thing is, millions of dollars of loss was also there and became international news as well. So prediction with minimalistic percentage of error is the need of the hour for India as a country, because with the changing global climatic conditions, we are witnessing that year by year the flooding conditions are aggravating in India.
Right.
And they have to be very much correct about the predictions, otherwise it is going to make huge loss to our country in the long run.
That's right. And so that now it makes sense when I used to read the newspaper, and the news related to the establishment of new supercomputers would be housed in National Institute of Oceanography in Goa, NIO and IMD. And I always wondered, why do these organizations need supercomputers? And now with this discussion, I think it makes sense that out of all the organizations, these are the organizations which need access to supercomputers first.
Very much. It is needed.
That's right.
Because they are dealing with something which is very critical for our country. Sea level is rising.
Correct.
Because of global warming.
Yeah.
And we are looking, or we are exploring the, you can say, oceans a lot nearby to our coastline for accessing various resources as well. Definitely they will be needing the best in class infrastructure.
That is correct. And so coming back to the discussion on monsoon, when you mentioned that the average for initial 2 months, the rainfall is going to be more than the average. What is this average rainfall?
Not initial 2 months. In the last 2 months.
In the last 2 months.
That is when you talk about, let's say, August and September, it is going to be above
average. But for the first 2 months, it is going to be around average.
So overall, when you count for the whole 4 months.
So what is the average?
Average is 87 centimeter.
87 centimeter.
That is total monsoonal rainfall.
Total monsoonal rainfall throughout the country.
So because the initial 2 months, it is going to be average rainfall. Correct. But in the last 2 months, it will be above average. So the total figure is expected to be going beyond 87 centimeters.
Going beyond. Okay. Now, the question is that all of us know that there is a huge regional disparity, diversity in the amount of rainfall received.
Obviously.
So there are a lot of areas in our country which receive rainfall like 200, 250 even centimeter in this particular 4 months.
Yes.
At the same time, there are areas which receive less than 10 centimeter rainfall. For example, the area from where you come from.
Western part of Rajasthan.
Western part of Rajasthan.
Obviously.
And so the question is that if there is such a huge regional disparity in the amount of monsoonal rainfall, probably India is ironical in that sense that it is only example or the very few rare examples across the globe where a same country observes floods as well as the droughts at the same time.
Definitely.
So the in the coming monsoonal season, you would have floods in Bihar and in Assam, and at the same time drought conditions in the hinterland of Maharashtra, hinterland of Telangana, and various other parts of the country.
Yes.
I have always wondered, is there a way through which we can remove this disparity and divert the extra water that these basins of Ganga and the Brahmaputra create to the deficit areas, so that we could balance the demand and supply of water in these two areas?
If I understood correctly, you are saying that can we achieve this holistic distribution of the fresh water in India?
Correct. That is correct.
Because some places are receiving a very good amount of monsoonal rainfall, which is northeastern India, obviously.
Yes.
And western part of Rajasthan is very less.
That's right.
Which is 8 to 12 centimeter, depending upon the area of western part of Rajasthan we are talking about. But this disparity actually in rainfall we cannot eliminate.
Yeah. So disparity in rainfall, that's something we cannot do anything about. But after the rainfall has fallen on the surface,
we have some methods in place.
Like
interlinking of rivers.
Oh yes.
And some projects are still under construction.
So with interlinking of rivers, what you basically mean is that we can connect Ganga and Godavari?
Theoretically, yes, but practically we have to see whether it is feasible or not. Because when you talk about this approach, it definitely comes with many advantages.
Like
flood control on one hand, because you shall
flood as well as drought.
Because
so you are going to manage two disasters with one initiative.
Correct. Because you will be transferring through canals water from access to the deficit areas. Second is that these canals can be utilized for inland navigation also.
Inland, and along the way we can irrigate a lot of agricultural land as well.
Irrigation facilities for the agriculture.
Yeah, so we can increase the net zone area as well.
Employment generation
while we are creating canals.
Yes, definitely. But drawbacks are also there, where one of the major drawback is relating to the governance part. Water is a state subject, and you have seen that in the past many states were fighting with each other for sharing of the river water. And when you are talking about transferring water from the eastern part of India, which is excessive rainfall, to western part of India, then definitely many different states have to be taken into account. And chances are very high that the states will be fighting with each other over the water which they will access from canal.
The only time I can recall people from Tamil Nadu and Karnataka fighting over is with respect to the distribution of Kaveri water.
And UP and MP are fighting with each other because of the ongoing project of Ken-Betwa link canal.
Because people of UP have this perception that the amount of water they will receive from Ken
will be relatively
less because now it is being diverted.
And still you see the situation of Uttar Pradesh. It is a land of rivers.
Yeah, there are so many rivers.
UP is raising the concern to Madhya Pradesh that after completion of this project, our accessibility to cane water will drop. But does it matter in Uttar Pradesh?
But it is not. But it matters because Uttar Pradesh is not able to utilize the extra water efficiently.
That is
a separate concern. That is a separate
amount
concern.
Of fresh water availability is not a concern in Uttar Pradesh.
That is correct. So, I mean, the only problem that you can think of is related to governance, which is
one of the most important problems.
What are the other problems associated with the project?
Other issues are
like
land
this?
acquisition.
Land acquisition.
Because when this infrastructure canals will be placed, you are supposed to acquire the land from the general public.
That's right.
And we have seen in the past many different issues of delays in compensation. So people are reluctant generally to give their land for the public infrastructure, because they have one perception in their mind that if we give our land for this public infrastructure, then the compensation will not come on time.
Yeah.
See the case of
and also
Narmada project.
That is right. And also the villages are a social ecosystem in themselves.
They
you cannot just say that move out of this land 100%. And we are going to give you this land over there. People are not
emotional connectivity is there with the
that parcel
generations
of land.
Are connected.
Generations have
and
been,
this is one of the most important reason that people are reluctant to give their piece of land for public infrastructure projects, including canals also.
And India has a very, very bad record, as you rightly said, of
for the compensation
land.
Part.
Yeah, compensation, as well as India has not been able to manage the earlier land that the state acquired. And the best example is Narmada. Where which is
compensation was delayed and entire Andolan has been raised for it.
Yeah, Medha Patik's involvement there, and that's right. So,
multiple other
both the problems that you are indicating, they deal with some matter related to polity and governance.
Some concerns which are being raised for the interlinking of river canal project is related to environmental aspect also.
Like?
Because this is what is being talked about, that this Ken-Betwa link canal, it will perform the habitat fragmentation for Bengal tigers in Panna Tiger Reserve.
Because it passes through the Panna Tiger.
So definitely it will hinder the movement of tigers and other wildlife species. Then soil salinity conditions may develop. Indira Gandhi Canal command area is the perfect example for it. Thousands of hectares of land nearby to IG Canal
has been rendered useless
because of waterlogging and the excessive salt concentration development in the soil. So these are environmental concerns.
It's not as easy as it seems like.
And cost component also, because the cost will also be involved, a very high cost. Definitely when you execute the project, then you are supposed to see the cost to benefit ratio. And if it is skewed.
So you're talking about cost of construction of canals.
And yes, definitely cost of construction of canals.
So, but we have very long distant canals. I think we have the capability to make it.
But other cost head is also there. Let's say you are talking about movement of water through canals from Ganga to Telangana.
Correct.
See the topography, uneven topography is there.
Oh yes.
Highlands are coming on the way, plateaus.
Yeah, so the Ganga basin is 100 and 150 meter above the sea level.
Yes.
And that water has to be uplifted to 400, at least 300 to 400 meters.
At least.
And
yes, definitely. Then you can transfer to Telangana. And this lifting the water continuously, it will consume lots of money. So that is not one-time cost.
Require lift systems,
that is not one-time cost, because you will consume electricity to run the lift systems
on a day-to-day basis. You have to lift that water.
Yes, and supply of water will be dependent on that lift systems itself. If they fail to work, then what you will do? So that is why the cost to benefit ratio in every, you can say, interlinking of river project is not favorable. It is
and on top
skewed.
of that, we have a recent phenomenon of climate change, where the investment, let's say we are able to figure out the federal matters, let's say we are able to somehow acquire all the land, let's say we are able to satisfy all the people, but then after doing so much, after investing such a huge money, it will take 25 years to build this system, and then after that, the pace at which climate change is taking place right now, this whole system might be rendered useless, because the rainfall pattern and the intensity of rainfall might have changed very much by then.
It's not a guarantee that the amount of water which Ganga has right now will be the same as it is in the upcoming decades of time period.
That is correct. So
because glacial melting is very fast.
Correct.
Glaciers are reducing in length. One study has been conducted for Gangotri Glacier through Geographical Information Studies data, remote sensing data, GIS, and which clearly showed that the length of Gangotri Glacier has reduced by 1 kilometer in the past decade of time.
That is correct. That is
correct. Nature of the river can change, and it is changing for many different rivers in India. So right now you are having ample availability of water in Ganga River, but because of the ongoing global climate changes situation, it may be possible that Ganga will not be having enough amount of water in future also. So your infrastructure will be rendered useless.
So what you are indicating towards the situation is that we do not have any solution to this extra water at some places and less water in some places.
We have a solution, but solution we can think about in other ways.
Like?
First part of the solution will be centered around supply of water. So let's say you will not construct canal because of the extra cost head, but you can go for the cheapest mode of transportation, that is pipeline.
Okay.
So you can transfer water via pipeline. It will not be having land acquisition issue, because pipelines can be subsurface features also.
That is correct.
Right. And
they do not need huge maintenance like canals.
And it is easy to maintain, you can say, pipelines in comparison to canals. And second thing is that when you talk about, let's say, distribution of the water is done, you have to teach the masses about the judicious use of water.
So we have to focus on increasing the water use efficiency.
Particularly in the sector of agriculture.
Yes.
when you account for the freshwater consumption in India, then 9% of India's total annual freshwater is consumed by domestic sector, which includes you and me also.
Yeah, that is correct.
Right? We are also part of it.
Yes.
And agriculture sector consumes 80% of India's total freshwater annually.
So it is 9 times of the usage.
Approximately, you can say 9 times.
Wow.
Agriculture sector is the largest consumer.
If the agriculture sector becomes a little bit more efficient,
yes,
because it has 80% contribution,
then you won't be needing that much of distribution of the fresh water.
That is correct.
And to come to that particular stage, you are supposed to encourage the efficient irrigation systems in our agriculture sector, which means drip and sprinkler, the micro irrigation.
So are we doing anything in that direction right now?
Government is running a scheme, Pradhan Mantri Krishi Sinchai Yojana.
Okay.
And that Pradhan Mantri Krishi Sinchai Yojana is having one component that we have to expand the command area under the drip facilities also. At least 10%.
What is command area?
Area under irrigation facilities.
Area under irrigation. So if there is a canal, and then the water from that canal,
area.
All the water from...
when you talk about, let's say, the sown area in India.
Correct.
Where the crops are cultivated. How much percentage of that will be having the irrigation facilities? First we see that. So out of the total sown area, the part which is under the irrigation facilities is the command area.
Okay.
Command area.
So we need...
Because that is you can control.
Yes.
And second thing, that it's not 100% of India's sown area having the presence of irrigation facilities right now. But it comes out to be, according to the latest, you can say, Niti Aayog data, is 55% of India's farmlands are having the presence of some, you can say, irrigation facilities. But we can stretch it to 60% only. We cannot go beyond it. That is also, government has clearly mentioned that we cannot bring every farmland under the irrigation facilities. It's not possible. Because 40% of India's farmlands are, you can say, not in the area of expansion of irrigation facilities because of the reasons that geohydrological conditions do not support that. The geographical terrain is very rugged. So it's not possible to expand the irrigation facilities there.
That is correct.
60% of India's sown area maximum can be brought.
So you cannot really take canals to Himalayas.
Well, not possible.
Not possible.
It's not possible.
It's not so possible. In Himalayas, either you are limited with the option of tank irrigation.
Tank irrigation.
Or maybe underground
pipeline-based approach is the most, you can say, best is the most perfect
practicable solution to all the problem.
Perfect solution.
And I think what you're saying is also correct, because you were telling me this just before this podcast that how Gujarat as well as Rajasthan are heavily utilizing the piped water transport.
Narmada waters are being transported up till Kota district of Rajasthan via pipelines.
That is right.
See the pipeline approach. There's no need for canal construction, which otherwise could have attracted many issues.
Yes.
And now this pipeline is getting to the demand of the fresh water very, very easily. Second thing is that you will be having this domestic sector is also being catered right now by the, you can say, government scheme, which is Nal Se Jal Har Ghar Jal scheme, where government is trying to provide the fresh water to the households in India via the pipeline-based approach.
Pipeline-based approach. And then one thing you also mentioned was with respect to micro irrigation, where you specifically mentioned drip and sprinkler.
Drip and sprinkler, yes.
So I would just want to understand that how far that is practicable in Indian circumstances. I know the case study of Israel,
yes,
where Israel has done wonders in terms of agricultural production
with drip irrigation facility.
Drip irrigation.
It actually originated from Israel.
Achha, this drip technology
system. Drip system originated.
It is
from
their
Israel.
invention, sort
their
of.
invention, but they have given.
Sir, what is drip irrigation?
So in drip irrigation, you lay down a piping network in the field.
Okay.
And that pipes will be having small openings in it, referred to as orifice.
Okay.
So that opening is very near to the plant root system. And through that opening, drop by drop, gradually,
water will be supplied.
Enough
water that is needed for?
And enough water, definitely, yes.
Not extra, not less.
Not less. And that too, precisely to the areas nearby to the plant root system. And that's why you call this drip irrigation as the precision irrigation also. That's where the word comes. It precisely transfers the water.
Both in quantity as well as in direction.
In direction also.
But that means it cannot be used for wheat and rice.
For rice, it has been shown experimentally successful.
Okay.
So when we go by the documents of Department of Agriculture and Farmer Welfare in India, then we have the reports where some of the farmers have shown on experimental basis that drip system can be utilized successfully for rice also.
So I always thought that drip irrigation is better for commercial crops or, for example, orchard production, where you specifically know
the
where
plant will be there
for a very long period of time.
Let's say tea plantation.
That is right.
But the crops which require, you can say, harvesting after a short span of time of, let's say, few months.
Yes.
Then you are supposed to dismantle the entire piping network and install it once again for the next cropping.
That is why it is very expensive also.
Expensive component is there in drip irrigation because of the hardware cost. The piping system, the overhead tank, the motors, many different, you can say, components are being utilized in drip irrigation systems, which themselves are expensive. And their maintenance cost is also very high. So we do have one subsidy mechanism for this drip irrigation system in place. And because irrigation is a state subject, so this subsidy amount varies from state to state. And the different state governments are offering, some of them are offering 70% subsidy, some of them are 90%. But still, after the subsidy amount, the cost is very high for the systems. And that is one of the reasons that acceptance level of drip irrigation system is so very bleak.
At a very low
level it is. So up till the time, because
only the better off farmers will be able to utilize and build upon the micro irrigation.
Obviously, but actually in India, when you talk about, or let's say anywhere in the world, when the farmers are cultivating crop, so they are also human beings. So they also have to think about some of the profit margins.
Right.
Then how they will run the families if they will not think about
we
the
cannot
profit
expect
margins.
Farmers to sacrifice their profits for
This
the
is
national water interests.
They are doing very good to the country, so they have the right to earn.
Correct.
Right?
That's right.
And if they use the drip irrigation system, then the input cost of crop cultivation will be very, very high.
That is correct.
Which may not, you can say, allow them to fetch some profit margins. That is why the more inclination of the farmers in India, and in fact across the world, is for the flood irrigation or furrow irrigation, which is the cheapest form of irrigation and the simplest form of irrigation method worldwide, including in India as a country also.
That is correct. All right. So basically, there is no solution to India's demand and supply mismatch of water except for better use efficiency, whether
you have to, you can say, introduce the efficient irrigation techniques and methods in agriculture sector. And adopt the pipeline based approach. Because then when you transfer the limited amount of water also, agriculture will not be consuming a very high amount of fresh water. For they have switched to, let's say, in future, if they will switch to a drip irrigation system or sprinkler, then the consumption of the water will reduce on its own, and your cost for transferring the water will also drop down.
That is correct. Okay. Thank you, sir. Now I think people have come in to take you to the classes. So the time is over, but we'll keep on utilizing the time in between the classes to have more podcasts with you.
Definitely.
Thank you so much, sir, for coming here.
Okay. Thank you.